Welcome back to Comics Cuts Live. We got a good show for you tonight. I got a good show for you tonight. We got a lot of things to get into. We have so much good stuff. Finally, we're getting Batman updates. So I'll give you a little rundown on what the show is going to be. So we got the Batman Part 2 updates, a lot with the Batman Part 2, some good stuff about Avengers Doomsday, Doctor Strange 3, and a little bit of DCU Superman stuff, but mainly Batman and Avengers Doomsday. So, all right, let's get going. Of course, my file closed out on me. All right, so we got the Batman Part 2 updates. So Matt Reeves had said that the Batman Part 2 is going to take Batman's character in an unexpected direction, and that the things that this film does for his character, for Batman and Bruce, I think it has never been done before in this way. And then Matt Tomlin, who's working on the movie, retweeted it and said, "Oh, you have no idea." So I think that this means he's going to be challenged in a way that we haven't seen yet. And, you know, it's interesting because the Batman did things that we've never really seen in terms of that way being done in a Batman movie. We've never seen him being so challenged in terms of being a detective, being so challenged with the crime, and also the way he was exploited by the Riddler. You know, the Joker in The Dark Knight tried to exploit Batman in that way, but Batman didn't fall for it the way he did in The Batman. It's just a fact, all right? Let's keep it real. You know, Batman kind of challenged the Joker at the end of the movie, but Pattinson, he fell for it. And that was kind of what that whole scene was about at the end of the movie when he was in, was it Arkham? I think it was Arkham, not Blackgate. And when he was on the other side of the window speaking to the Riddler, you know, and Matt Reeves has said a number of other things, and we're going to get into that too. But I think that this is hinting at the villain. I think this is hinting at the villain, and I think that they're hinting that the villain is going to challenge Batman and Bruce in a way that has never been done before. And I think that the villain is going to challenge not just Batman, but also Bruce Wayne. And I think that this is hinting at the villain is going to exploit Bruce Wayne's world, Bruce Wayne's relationships. And I think that this means that we are going to see either the Court of Owls or Hush. Having said that, I do think it would be a major mistake to use Hush. I think that the Court of Owls are such a better villain, you know, and they're doing Hush too right now, the Jeff Loeb comic that Jim Lee was drawing. I forget who's doing it now, but they took Jim Lee off it. It's doing terrible, okay? Nobody likes it. It's absolute garbage. And I'm starting to realize that Hush is a one-pony trick of a villain. The original Hush comic is phenomenal. I love it. It's one of my favorite Batman comics. Don't get me wrong. But there's a reason you never really see Hush other than that comic. And that's because Hush sucks, okay? I'm going to tell you how it is. The Court of Owls, however, are my favorite Batman villain. And they are perfect for the Batman epic crime saga, okay? They are the best villain for this version of Batman, this dark, mysterious detective Batman. For those of you that aren't so familiar with the Court of Owls, let me break it down for you, okay? The Court of Owls is the secret society, Illuminati of Gotham. They control everything. They have the entire city on puppet strings. And when Bruce or Batman first finds out about the Court of Owls, he didn't believe that they existed because his reaction was, well, if they existed and they were this powerful and had that much control over Gotham, I would know who they are. So he stopped looking for them. And then he found more clues and ended up being like, wait a minute, this might be real. I have to do my due diligence. And then he scopes them out and finds them. But that is a secret society. They also have the Talons, they're trained assassins, and they are ruthless. So the Talons are like, they're suited soldiers and they're masked up and everything. And those are the ones who do their violence and their bidding and their, the action. But think of a secret society that's controlled everything. So I think the Court of Owls would be much better. Hush is Tommy Elliott, who is Bruce's childhood friend. And Tommy Elliott, is someone who is a manipulator, and he is someone who knows how to get under Bruce's skin. And the thing is that they have hinted at both, okay? They've hinted at both. I forget all the Court of Owls hints, but I know that they hinted at Tommy Elliott in some of Riddler's videos for when he was doing the videos on the Arkhams and the Waynes and stuff like that in the first movie. And then there were owl like statues or figurines in the courtroom in the Penguin. So they've hinted at both, and I think they've done that to keep us guessing and talking about it. And I have a little more proof that I think that that's the kind of game they're playing, because Matt Reeves also said, we put the script into a secret pouch that literally has a lock on it with a code. Pattinson was in New York at the time, and everything is high security. We really trust Rob because he's the best. And then Robert Pattinson said, so Benito, who's my assistant, he goes and seeks out a very, very high security pouch that has a code on it. And that we then have to send separately. That was Matt Reeves said that. And then Rob was like, I can't open it. I said, I know, here's the code. He opened it, and we had a FaceTime after he read it. It was very exciting. So, by the way, I would like to give some props to Matt Reeves, okay? And I know everyone is, wanting to attack him over how long it took him to write this script, but this is like the most details we have about the script, okay? Meanwhile, every other comic book movie, we learn the whole plot before the movie. Marvel's getting a bit better at it right now, but they are going to great lengths to keep this thing under wraps. We literally know nothing about this movie other than these quotes, okay? So I love it. I think it's great. I'd rather be guessing about what the movie is than have the whole thing scooped on Twitter, okay? So shout out to Matt Reeves. Shout out to Pattinson. Keep doing this thing. Keep it under, keep it locked up, all right? Because let me tell you, these scoopers, they are ruthless. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to knock the scoopers. I love what they do. I love being able to talk about the movie. It's fun. But, and if something's out there, like, I'm impatient. I'm going to look at it, okay? But I would rather go into the movie knowing less, and I want to give them their flowers for that. Anyway, I think the movie sounds amazing, and so do they, based on what we know. And Robert Pattinson has read the script and said he's very excited. Colin Farrell read it and called it extraordinary. Jeffrey Wright says he heard amazing things, and he has also read it at this point. Andy Serkis is excited for it and says it's epic. He hasn't read it yet. James Gunn read it and says it's great. Peter Safran read it and says he likes it very much. Warner Brothers are thrilled with the script. Zaslav keeps spamming James Gunn to read it. Well, that's before James Gunn had read it. Mattson Tomlin says it's going to surpass the first one. Matt Reeves says they've chatted about doing additional spin-off series for other characters in the Batman epic crime saga. And they also confirmed that Kristen Milioti will not return as Sophia Falcone in the Batman Part 2, which, by the way, let's call a spade a spade. She was phenomenal in Penguin, but like, we do not need Sophia Gigante in the Batman Part 2. They're better characters. They're bigger characters. Her story is up, okay? Like, just because she was great, someone on Twitter yesterday was like, oh, well, we need her because she's Catwoman's stepsister. You know what? Why don't we call Catwoman's grandma, all right? Bring over the whole fucking family for Thanksgiving. What do you think this is, bro? It's a fucking movie, okay? We don't even know if we need Catwoman, let alone Catwoman's stepsister. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, all right, let's get to some chats. So, Kev Co, welcome back. Court of Owls. That's who I want to see, man. I love the Court of Owls. And, like, the Court of Owls Batman is what got me obsessed with comics to begin with. But I've reread it to make sure, like, I still view it the same way and I'm not just biased. And even after rereading it, like, it really is that good. Court of Owls are the GOAT. Hungry Almighty. Riddler was already wrapping people's faces in the first movie, and so I don't see them doing Hush because of that. I really hope not. I really hope not. I will say, though, like, that Hush comic is super popular. I wouldn't, as much as, like, I think Hush is becoming a one-trick pony, and, like, you know, the Hush 2, I think it started releasing over the summer. I don't think that they would have changed their intentions with the script based on the reception of Hush 2 this summer. But I do think it's interesting that that Hush 2 comic is seemingly getting fans to look differently at Hush. And by the way, like, what you have to understand about comic book fans and comic book movies is that they need the comic book fans. The comic book fans are the purists. The comic book fans are what the casuals follow when it comes to knowing what to be hyped about. You think casuals would know to be hyped about someone like Doctor Doom if it weren't for the comic book purists like myself and you guys who love to talk about this stuff? It's the comic book fans who set the pace. And it's the same kind of thing with sneakers too. Like, you know, that's how Yeezys first got hot. That's how Off-White got hot. That's how all these brands get hot. Supreme. It's all about the purists. It's always about the purists that set the pace into their medium or whatever it is. Hunter, welcome back, bro. Comics Cuts. If Paramount buys Warner Brothers, do you see him extending James Gunn and Peter Safran for 20 more years, and you can finish Zack Snyder verse with 1 or 2 movies? I definitely don't think Zack Snyder is going to be brought into the equation. I do think that there's a good chance if Paramount buys Warner Brothers that part of the appeal in buying Warner Brothers is James Gunn with DC. Like, do you guys realize that last summer, what was it called? Deadpool and Wolverine did $1.3 billion. When Superman released on digital, its numbers on its digital release were stronger than Deadpool and Wolverine. That's crazy because Superman did $615 million. That is under half of Deadpool and Wolverine's box office, and it outsold it on digital. Like, that is crazy, bro. So I definitely think that there is a lot of hype and a lot of steam with the DCU, and I think that it is part of the appeal. Like, if I were buying Warner Brothers right now and I weren't into comic books or comic book movies, I think I would look at the metrics and I would look at James Gunn and Peter Safran and everything they're doing with DC Studios as part of the appeal. I'm not Warner. I'm obviously not Paramount, so I don't know, but I do think Paramount is smart. They're a very impressive company. I don't think they would buy a company like Warner Brothers and be like, you know what, we want to start over with DC. Screw what James Gunn's doing. Like, I just don't see that happening. If the never been done before thing is Robin Dick in this dark, gritty world, I'm going to cry. You know, it could be. It's interesting because it said the things that this film does for his character, for Batman and Bruce. But that could 100% apply to Dick Grayson and Bruce taking in someone like Dick Grayson to help him out, you know? I want a villain we have not seen, so Court would be perfect. I agree, 100%, 100%. I think the Court is the way to go. And, you know, for people who are like, oh, save the Court of Owls for the third movie, like that was another thing I got into a little debate on Twitter the other day. And first of all, the Court of Owls was the first arc of Batman's New 52 run by Scott Snyder. So they didn't get any build-up in their debut, and it went down as one of the greatest Batman comics of all time. So I don't think they need the build up. And if the movie's going to be 3 hours, like they got enough runtime for build up in the first act. You know what I mean? Hunter Iggy, comics cut, and where is superhero cuts at? So I'm not working with him anymore. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. You know, I don't pay attention to what he's doing. If he's, you know, I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to take any shots. Hungry Almighty. I hate it when fans on the internet who don't read but love the movies say, or let me reread that. I hate it when fans on the internet who don't read but love the movies say comics don't matter. If it was the case, Doom wouldn't be the main villain of Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. 100%. Bro, if comics didn't matter, comic book movies wouldn't be a thing and they wouldn't matter. I have seen, I'll say this, there are some content creators out there who don't love it enough to read the comics, and they try to say the comics are, you know, put down the comics, but that's because they're too lazy and their passion for this isn't, they don't really have the passion for it. You know, they care more about clout than they do about the actual comics and the movies. The clout to them is more important than the actual comics. So, you know, like, that's why I always say, like, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't really love it. If I didn't read comics and watch comic book movies, I would not have Comics Cuts as an account on socials. I wouldn't have a podcast. I would have never done this, you know? And I definitely don't want to lend someone credibility when they don't have the passion for it to stand on their own. Yeah, I can't see Paramount rebooting James DCU because it's too risky given how the new Superman is now loved along with all these other actors. Exactly. And Superman, like $615 million for the first movie in a new universe is a strong performing number. We live in a world where people have no grasp on business or economics, and they're like, oh, well, if a movie doesn't do $1 billion, it's not success. And then you have the Snyder cult, who they love to say this. They love to say, oh, well, Superman was a flop. If $615 million was a flop, the entire industry would collapse. Most movies don't make $615 million. The Snyderverse died and caused backlash, and now imagine rebooting again after you just established this new universe. People are going to stop caring about DC. That's the other thing. It's a great point. And I thought about this too. It's like, how many times could you say to a fan base, like, oh, we know you like this, but we want to do it differently again. You can't do it. You just can't. They got to stick with this thing now. I think they really do need to ride it out. I do think there are some people who I will say, like, I don't think you have to be a fan of James Gunn. I really don't. I think there are a lot of people who never gave James Gunn a chance because they are part of the Snyder cult. That's not what I'm talking about. I do think there are people who like watched Superman and liked it and were like, James Gunn kind of dialed it back. Like Josh, Den of Nerds, says that, and he's like, I think Superman worked because James Gunn dialed it back just enough, but we need to continue to see him do that, which I think is a fair take. It wasn't like as much James Gunn's style as Guardians of the Galaxy, and it worked for Superman. If Paramount wanted to reboot, they would need to do it 10 years from now after Gunn's DCU has been established for years, like the MCU. But that would even be dumber. Like if you bought Warner Brothers and you wanted to reboot the DCU, you'd be better off doing it now than 10 years down the line. Because 10 years down the line, it's going to be like, you think this thing has steam now, in 10 years, it's going to be much bigger than it is right now. Imagine saying that to the MCU after the first 10 years, which would have been 2018. Imagine saying, all right, you know what? After Endgame, let's reboot the MCU. In retrospect, that's another story, and we're going to get to that. But imagine saying that in 2018 or 2019 after Endgame came out. All right, so now we're going to get into Avengers Doomsday. So before we get into Avengers Doomsday, we have some Alex Perez stuff. What I'm going to do is I took off a bunch of quotes and that I wanted to talk about, but it's separate. So we're going to do my own Avengers Doomsday docket, and then we're going to go through the Alex Perez stuff that I took off. All right. So the Avengers Doomsday synopsis has finally been released. Dr. Doom has officially arrived in the MCU. This villain, a master of cutting-edge science and powerful magic, will unleash a cascading crisis across the entire multiverse. So very simple, very short, not really revealing, but I think it tells us one thing and one thing only. I think it tells us that we are going to be getting a comic accurate Dr. Doom. I think they wanted to say, and again, if you've been listening to me and you heard what I said last week when I talked about the chalkboard photo from the Russos, I thought that they wanted to change the conversation. I think their big concern is half of the fan base's conversation around them casting RDJ as Dr. Doom. And they know if the RDJ Dr. Doom thing doesn't work, this whole thing is going to blow up. So they want to make sure people are excited about Dr. Doom specifically. And I think that's why they released this synopsis. I think we're going to get a longer synopsis. I think we're going to get more info. But don't forget, this is like the next thing they intentionally put out after that chalkboard, which I also told you was them wanting to change the conversation around Dr. Doom. Now, I think they want people to know it's a comic accurate Dr. Doom. And why do they want people to know it's a comic accurate Dr. Doom if they think people don't care about comics? They obviously know people care about comics. They obviously know the purists set the pace, and the casuals take note of what the purists are excited for. And if the purists are excited about RDJ Dr. Doom, for the most part, they will too. Because I hate to break it to you guys, I don't know if you've been living under a rock, but most people, they just don't think for themselves. I wish they did. I really do. But they just don't. So anyway, the big rumor is that Dr. Doom is going to reportedly have a vendetta against the multiverse in Avengers Doomsday. And I just don't like, that sounds crazy to me, a vendetta against the multiverse, and the rumor tied to that is that Marvel may rewrite its own history with Avengers Doomsday and erase everything post Endgame. So I definitely think, which it's very similar to what happens with DC. Does this more than Marvel. Like when DC puts out a crossover event, like a Crisis book, it's usually because they want to change the status quo of their comic lineup. And Marvel, they usually want to tell a certain story. They want to change some things, but Secret Wars was very much a reset for the status quo across Marvel Comics. And it's becoming clear that that is what they are doing in the MCU. Now, what would that include? And if you've been listening to me for a while, you know I would love for this to include a lot of things, because I think a lot of things have bogged the MCU down and diminished the fan experience for so many of us, to the extent that people showed up less. People showed up less for Captain America Brave New World. People showed up less for Thunderbolts, even when they called it New Avengers. People even showed up less for Fantastic Four. So supposedly this would include Disney Plus shows like She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Secret Invasion, Miss Marvel, movies like The Marvels, Quantumania, and even Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts, and Captain America Brave New World. The new plan would pick up after Endgame, making all movies and shows after that non-canon, and revisit Captain America's choice to live with Peggy Carter. Okay? So a lot of interesting things there. I know that is probably music to some of your ears, and to some it's probably like, holy shit, like that's crazy. I hope they don't do that. Some of those projects that I named, I liked. Some of them I didn't like. I almost think it's for the best. I really do. I almost think it's for the best. Like, as long as the characters had that experience and that doesn't change, I'm fine with it. But like, you can make it in a way where nobody else understands or believes that these events happened, but the character still understands that they experienced that. Kind of like what we're expecting of Spider-Man in Brand New Day, where he's going to remember all his experiences with other characters, but characters won't remember their experiences with him because they don't know who he is. Does that make sense? All right. So I'm going to get to the DC stuff in a bit. I want to do the Marvel stuff first. So I know I missed a couple chats. I heard we might get a Doomsday trailer this year. Do you think we will? I am not sure. The reason I'm not sure is because I don't think they need to do it. The reason I don't think they need to do a Doomsday trailer is because they know the internet is constantly talking about this movie. And for all of us, it's like a countdown until this movie comes out. They still have Spider-Man Brand New Day releasing in July, and then Doomsday. Even if it comes out in December, that trailer is a full year out from that movie. I don't think it serves Marvel any purpose at all to serve that trailer this year. I think we'll probably see like a look of Doctor Doom and some photos, but I don't think we're going to be getting a trailer. And I don't think they need to put out a trailer. I really don't. I think that they should save the trailers for next year and not burst the hype bubble too soon. Not that that's even really possible with this movie, but they still got to play their cards right. I don't think they will erase everything post Endgame. I don't either, by the way, but I do think they're going to erase some. Example, Spider-Man No Way Home will still be canon, but Secret Invasion and She-Hulk will be erased. 100% I agree. And it's going to go down with, was it successful? Was it not? And or is it important to our universe? And with the Fantastic Four, like, again, you could have those characters that experienced it and make that movie not canon. But that's an easy one to keep as canon because it didn't happen in the sacred timeline. So you may as well keep it anyway. Deadpool and Wolverine needs to be erased, but unlikely. The anchor being concept needs to go. It's funny. The second I saw the first sentence, the second sentence was what came to mind. So I 100% agree with that. Now that I really think about it, Spider-Man No Way Home and Brand New Day could possibly be the only MCU movies that will keep canon, but everything else will be erased because they all don't matter. Just crazy. It's like, you know, a lot of people are trying to say, oh, the Multiverse saga wasn't that bad. Like, bro. I agree. I don't want them to erase all of it, but like, if they had to, I would understand it. I think we could get a Doomsday teaser before Avatar. That's a great call. If anything, before Avatar, because they know that movie is going to be $1 billion movie. They know the type of fans that are going to see Avatar are the type of fans who would see an Avengers movie. Whether they're casuals or not is irrelevant. If they do release a Doomsday trailer, it will 100% be tied to Avatar. All right. Now, Doctor Strange 3, time runs out. I hope this movie happens, okay? I don't know if it's going to be called Time Runs Out. I don't know if it's going to be Illuminati, but there's just so much more of the story that they need to tell that I think an additional movie would make sense. And they do have that movie slated for the summer of 2027. So it would come after Avengers Doomsday, but before Avengers Secret Wars, which makes me think, I don't know if it's going to be Time Runs Out because I think Doomsday is going to be the final incursion. But we'll see. Anyway, supposedly this movie would release July 23rd, 2027. It's positioned after Avengers Doomsday and before Secret Wars, and reportedly features Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and many more. TV shows and movies were reportedly removed or scrapped for them to put more resources into this movie. Okay. This came from someone on Twitter, by the way. I want to make sure I, not only to give them credit, but also so you guys know where I'm getting information like this, where it sounds crazy. But it came from someone that goes by Miss Minutes Born. Miss Minutes Born on Twitter. So Doomsday wraps filming, but according to James Mack, there are going to be reshoots this year and next year with actors who couldn't film during the 6-month period. James Mack is another scooper on Twitter. So, you know, the reason I see the third movie being a Doctor Strange movie is because I just think that if it's an Avengers movie, they would have needed to announce it much earlier. If it's a Doctor Strange movie, they could easily shoehorn that into the larger MCU story. And Doctor Strange is a huge character. He is a major player in the Time Runs Out Illuminati storyline. So they could do that. And I think that would make sense. I think it would be awesome. The other reason I think this is happening, and this is the one that I think everyone's missing, is that I don't see a world where Bob Iger is happy that Marvel only has one movie in 2027 for the MCU. Yes, it's Avengers Secret Wars, and it's going to easily do $1 billion. But that doesn't mean they want to leave money on the table. And it's not just money. It's also strategy. It's making sure you're consistently putting movies out and engaging the audience in the same kind of interval, and you're not letting too much time go. So I think that Bob Iger is a big reason that this Doctor Strange 3 movie comes out. Now, granted, it might not be Doctor Strange 3. It might be another thing, but I think it's Doctor Strange 3. I really do. I think it makes the most sense out of all the characters and everything we know about the Time Runs Out Illuminati storyline that leads into Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. All right. Now let's get into the... Great, where is it? Hold on. All right, now let's get into the Alex Perez Cosmic Circus stuff. Someone asks, will Loki have a prominent role in Doomsday and Secret Wars? To which Alex responds, yes. All those centuries of physics, quantum mechanics, and learning everything Obi Ouroboros knows has to pay off for something, which is great. I hope Loki is involved in this. I think it makes sense. I also think Loki could, maybe take some of the role of Molecule Man. Molecule Man was literally a bomb and helped set off the incursions. And I think Loki could be a part of that. And Loki could also be used for Doctor Doom to take the power of Loki to create Battleworld. In terms of movies, No Way Home, Brand New Day, Multiverse of Madness, Deadpool, Wolverine, First Steps, Guardians of the God. I agree with that. I agree. I hate Multiverse of Madness, but I do think they have to keep that one. As much as it sucks. If Holland's Spider-Man is in Doomsday, what role will he play in the story? Alex Perez answers, similar to the one in Avengers Infinity War. So that seemingly confirms that our guy, Spider-Man, is in Avengers Doomsday, which he kind of has to be. Like, he's the number one, What is Doom's power set for Doomsday and Secret Wars looking like? Alex Perez, his genius intellect that he's gathered from studying the multiverse and his master manipulation skills, and magic. Do you notice what he said there, by the way? From studying the multiverse. This sounds like someone who has a chalkboard. Just saying. So, Alex Perez also said that Red Guardian and The Thing are going to team up in Avengers Doomsday. I think that sounds awesome, by the way. Like, for two characters to be entertaining as in a team up, Red Guardian and The Thing. I think they would crush it together. Those are two great actors as well. David Harbour and Ebon Moss-Backrack. They're great. So I could see Spider-Man being the only character to remember what the world was like before the reset. That would be crazy. And like, it kind of messes with him. Oh man, that's a genius idea. Hungry, bro. You're creative. That was awesome. Alex Perez, I can confirm that there are actors who weren't announced that were filming recently for Avengers Doomsday in the land down under. It's interesting he said the land down under, because I'm pretty sure that means Australia. Like, I didn't realize they're filming in Australia. But, the Savage Land was involved in the Hickman run. That would be pretty cool if they did like some kind of Savage Land scene. I think that Red Guardian and the Thing would be more entertaining. I think Hulk and the Thing would be more entertaining in terms of an action scene and seeing them fight. But in terms of the characters interacting with each other and talking with each other, I think it would be more entertaining to watch the Thing interact with Red Guardian than it would to see him interact with Bruce Banner. I can confirm that there. Oh, we got that. So Alex Perez also said Paul Rudd has been filming his scenes for Doomsday, which I hope that people turn around on Paul Rudd and Ant-Man. I always loved Paul Rudd as an actor. I always loved the Ant-Man movies. I love all three of the Ant-Man movies. I think it's a really underrated trilogy within the MCU. And I think that a lot lot of people blamed Ant-Man for Quantumania, which I also think people are too harsh on. But Paul Rudd's a great casting as Scott Lang. He's a great character, and I hope that fans remember that when he comes back. Alex Perez, multiple people caused incursions. Steve just happens to be one of them. So that's another thing I predicted. Because remember, everyone's keep talking about how Steve Steve, when he went back and returned the Infinity Stones, is not what caused the incursions. It's the fact that he decided to stay with Peggy, which is what caused the incursions. But the interesting thing is the fact that what I said is that not alone is that's not it's not going to be the only thing that caused the incursions. There are going to be other actions from other characters that had a role in causing the incursions. And I think it's going to go back to remember that scene when the Hulk, Ant-Man, Hawkeye, and they were talking about how time travel works in the MCU. I think that scene is going to be very relevant, and I think both Loki seasons are going to be very relevant for what caused the incursions, and I think that's what Doctor Doom will have been studying before we really meet him. Yeah, unfortunately, Quantumania is probably one of the top of the list of being erased. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Because I think they regret that movie. I do. And it really sounded like it from the most recent interview that Kevin Feige did. And he said, we realized Kang isn't Thanos. And it just sucks, man. Kang is such a great character. The current Avengers run. Did I tell you guys about what's going on in the current Avengers run in the comics and the Secret Wars retcon? It's crazy. If you want me to tell you, I will. If not, we can skip it. But I think it's cool. So, Red Gyarados. Hey, Alex. Assuming she's in it, what role will Wanda play in Doomsday? In the past, you've hinted at a couple of possibilities, including Wanda and Doom as allies and Magneto's family reunion. And I'm curious how it all fits together. Alex Perez answers, in an unofficial capacity, I heard we'd be getting a Wanda variant from the X-Men universe that we'll see in Avengers Doomsday, which is a universe where Magneto is finally ruling Genosha as he had always pictured it. And we'd have like a royal family type of situation with Eric, Pietro, Wanda, and Polaris. This is an idea that has been pushed since Multiverse of Madness and then Deadpool and Wolverine. But it never feels like the right fit because it feels like it takes away from the overall plot. However, the main point they would like to explore with Wanda is the father-daughter relationship with Eric. I think that this is I think to some extent this is going to happen. And the reason I think this is going to happen is, first of all, if you've been in an MCU movie and you are not being brought back, like if I was an actor and I was in a Marvel movie and I wasn't being brought back for Avengers Doomsday, I would be insecure as hell, okay? They are bringing everybody back, all right? To the extent that you got people talking about bringing Catwoman's sister into the Batman Part 2. I know it's unrelated, but I want to make the joke because it was stupid. But like, could you imagine being a Marvel actor and not being invited back for Doomsday? That's embarrassing. So, yeah, I could see this happening. I love Magneto. I'm not really that big on Wanda. Like, I think Wanda's kind of corny sometimes. I just want Magneto to be dope. And I don't want to see the father-daughter relationship. But I do think that Wanda's coming back. And I do think they're going to want to do something special with her because they understand that Wanda has a huge, huge fan base. When I went to Avengers Doomsday, I was sitting, when I went to see Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I sat next to a girl who was dressed as Wanda, like the full thing. It was crazy. Wakanda forever being erased means the child is alive in the MCU. They are definitely going to do that. And by the way, I think when Kevin Feige said how they're planning on recasting Iron Man and Captain America, I think he was very intentional in saying that because he wanted to prepare people for the fact that they are going to recast T'Challa. It's 100% going to happen. I think it's going to happen after Secret Wars, but it's going to happen. Alex Perez said Shang-Chi is a bit of a comic relief. He may feel out of place because it'll be his first time being in a large group of superpowered heroes. Although I do have to say, did you see Doom's recent design from the Disney 2026 Merchandise Expo in China? Shoot, no, not the one-to-one design they'll use in Doomsday, but it's close. Say, upon closer inspection, doesn't that placard Doom have on his abdomen? Doesn't that placard that Doom has on his abdomen look mighty interesting? It's almost like you could bounce a ring off it or a 10. All right, well, now we got to get the photo up, so bear with me. Oh, I see what he's talking about. Hold on. He could bounce a what off it? A ring. Oh. I think he's teasing a crazy fight between Shang-Chi and Doctor Doom. I think a lot of people are going to fight with Doctor Doom, though. Like, a lot of people fought with Thanos. Will the new Avengers get to fight together as a team in Doomsday, or could they be split up? Alex Perez answers, they'll fight together in some scenes, sometimes with other characters involved as well, leading to some interesting team ups. Kind of going back to that, The Thing and Red Guardian team up. If Marvel decides to erase Wakanda forever, it means they can recast T'Challa without using a reset since T'Challa is alive post Endgame. Or they can say forever takes place during the blip. Yeah, that is a good point. I do think some kind of reset is coming, though. Like Feige said it. He said it in the interview. So there is a reset coming. And I think whichever way they go, they want to bring in T'Challa. Like, if they're going to be recasting Iron Man and Captain America, they could get away with recasting T'Challa, even with the crowd that, is very anti. I think they were worried about offending them. That's really what I think. Alex also said Magneto, Ian McKellen, is several lifetimes spent chasing haven after haven, promised land after promised land. And for what? Every time the gates of Eden slam shut in our faces, it breaks us a little more. Oof. I like that. Magneto is going to be going through it, which means he's going to be savage. This is my favorite thing from the whole September Q&A. This one is fire, okay? Alex Perez, excellent question. I take the questions out because, what's the point of bringing the question in when we get the answer? Just waste time. Anyway, Alex Perez says, excellent question. The short answer is yes. The long answer is a pattern. The Russos always had one common pattern in most of their MCU films. That pattern being making the antagonists of their films have a valid motivation to justify their actions. Alexander Pierce in The Winter Soldier believed that if humanity were left unchecked without oversight, a chaos would ensue because of free will. That's why he established Project Insight with Hydra. With Baron Zemo in Civil War, his family died in Sokovia during Age of Ultron as a result of the Avengers' battle with Ultron. So he sought to destroy the Avengers from within by making them fight with each other. With Thanos, he saw overpopulation as the ultimate threat to existence. So he sought out to eliminate half of all life at random to restore balance to the universe. With Doom, it will be similar. With Doom, it will be similar. A man scorned by the incursions that are happening across the multiverse, dooming countless realities, and he wants to bring an end to that by any means necessary. So I love this answer so much. The reason I love this answer so much, first of all, is the Russos have a way of making MCU movies about big, complex ideas, but simplifying them where you don't feel that it's so complicated. And it's almost like, I'm trying to find a better word for dumbed down, but because I don't think it's like a dumbed down movie, but it doesn't feel so complex and out of reach for people to understand, where it's just easy to enjoy, yet these things also make you stop and think about the villain's perspective and these larger, complicated ideas in a simple way, if that makes sense. I think it does. I know it makes sense, actually. Anyway, the other thing I really love about this is Doctor Doom. One of the main things you need to understand about Doctor Doom is that in many ways, Doctor Doom would be a hero if he didn't believe that the ends justify the means. Like, one of the things about heroes is that they don't believe the ends justify the means. They have standards, they have principles, and they won't break that to get to the end that they're trying to get to. Where Doctor Doom, he doesn't really care about any of that. He still has his own principles and everything, but his principles aren't rooted in morality and doing right by others. And that's like one of the key things about Doctor Doom. So the fact that they're talking about this here shows that they really know what they're doing with Doctor Doom, number one. And number two, it's very Hickman-esque with the Russos, but the Russos do it in a way where it's simplified for large commercial success for a Hollywood blockbuster film. This is a hot take, but if they recast Cap and Iron Man, then Thor should be recasted as well. It would be like keeping Henry Cavill, but recasting Ben and Gal. You know, it depends to me. The problem is if they don't kill Thor off, I think they should just keep him around. Because if he didn't die, like, I just think it's like, recasting him for what? But just because we have a new Iron Man and a new Captain America, you know, Chris Hemsworth is a great Thor, and if they don't kill him off, I think they should keep him around. I get where you're coming from, but like I do think that if Thor is alive after the end of Secret Wars and they recast him, I think that would go over worse than if they did. Hunter Iggy, Comics Cuts. When do you think we will get the true Horsemen of Apocalypse or Shadow King in the MCU? I would say the second or third phase of the mutants. So, like, I think the mutant saga is going to be right after Secret Wars, and I could see it being the second or third. I know that they are talking about Mr. Sinister being the first big bad. Hungry Almighty. Since they are bringing back Savage Hulk in Brand New Day, is this a sign that Hulk won't be recast post Secret Wars, or is there still a chance Hulk will get recasted? It's a good question. I don't think they're going to kill him off. I really don't. I don't think people really care if they killed him off. I think that's kind of the position they're in, and it's easier to keep him around than kill him off. Because I think if they kill him off, it's going to come off as tacky. Like, I don't think it would go over well, because I think fans would realize, wait, I don't even care. Like, you know, and I just don't think it would work well for the movie if people were supposed to care about something and it was made into a big deal and they didn't. I don't think it would go over well. So I think they're going to keep Hulk around, and I think they'll keep Mark Ruffalo around. As much as if I had a choice for recast, he would be like top of my list. Okay. All right. All right. So another interesting piece. Supposedly, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, after being spotted in London, they're being saved for Avengers Doomsday. So supposedly they're going to be in Avengers Doomsday. And Gwyneth Paltrow was spotted in London. And I think I meant to say, where's that photo? I don't have it. But this is a photo that I do have. Jennifer Garner posted this. So what I think is happening, like I said, if you were in an MCU movie, or just a Marvel movie, and you weren't invited back for Avengers Doomsday, you must be embarrassed as hell, you know, because they're bringing everyone back. And if they're bringing Gwyneth Paltrow back, which just because she's in London doesn't mean she's in the movie, but the picture she took was with other Marvel actors. And she could just be in London and visited set because she's friends with the actors from working with them for so long. It's possible. Or it's possible they're bringing everybody back. So, of course, they're going to bring back Gwyneth Paltrow, because why the hell not? And I think they're bringing Iron Man back. I really do. Just by the fact that they're bringing everyone back. He's already on set. Box office is down. I think that it would also give Bob Iger and Kevin Feige a bigger sense of security around the box office performance, considering the poor box office they have been facing. So that is my thought around that. I also, listen, I really love No Way Home. And for Spider-Man No Way Home, when it first came out and the rumors that they were going to have Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and I'm a diehard Spider-Man fan. I was hoping that they weren't going to be in the movie. I just don't like the idea of cameo porn. I saw everyone hyped over the movie just for that reason. I hoped they weren't in the movie. When the first watch, when I was in theaters, I was hoping they weren't in the movie. And when I saw them on the screen, I was like, ugh. But I still really loved the movie. And then I saw it again, and then it came out, and then I thought about it some more, and then I watched it again and again. And then I started to have an issue with the fact that, well, not had an issue, but the issue that I had from the beginning after seeing it the first time that became a bigger issue for me was the fact that none of the villains in No Way Home were native to the MCU. They were all from Tobey Maguire's universe or Andrew Garfield. None of them were from Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe. And then I realized something. And I realized that the third act wouldn't have worked as well as it did if it had a villain from Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe. So I've come to realize that not only is that movie, I think it's the best Spider-Man movie ever. I really do. And I grew up on Tobey Maguire. I love Spider-Man 2. I put that one as the second best Spider-Man movie ever. I really do think No Way Home is the best Spider-Man movie ever. But like, do we need Tobey and Andrew again? Do you think we do? The other thing that they've said is that their next appearance is going to be the end of their stories. Like, that will be it. They always say that, but I don't know if they're in. I think I said Doomsday, and I think I wrote down Doomsday, but I'm pretty sure that it was that redacted guy who said Secret Wars, that they're saving them from Secret Wars. I guess Secret Wars would make more sense than Doomsday. I wouldn't have a problem with them being in Secret Wars, but I mean, because they're bringing everyone else. Like, why not? Another reason that I can see this whole erasing everything post Endgame is true is because they know a lot of fans did not watch every MCU movie post Endgame outside of the handful like No Way Home, for example. Hungry, you're cooking tonight. That's a brilliant, brilliant take. And they've said, to further your point, they keep saying that they don't like that fans feel like watching their stuff is homework, and they want to make their projects more accessible to fans who don't want to watch every single MCU project. And that's part of the reason they made Fantastic Four in the 60s in a different universe, because you could just go to watch Fantastic Four without watching any Marvel movie ever. You could watch that one as your first Marvel movie, and you could completely understand absolutely everything and enjoy that movie. So I could see that being a big, I actually think that's the primary reason for doing this. If they do it, I think that's the primary reason. Comics cuts. If we Hunter Agee says comics cuts. If we do get MCU versus DCU, why does they send the authority and the MCU against everyone in the MCU? Are you talking about the DC authority or the time variance authority? Hungry Almighty. What made No Way Home special is because Tobey and Andrew actually had a role. And there's also another reason why, which I will say in a different comment. I agree. Tobey and Andrew Spidey never really got that proper ending. Both their last movies left a bad taste in people's mouth. No Way Home gave both that proper ending, but also elevating Tom at the same time. 100%. 100%. The DC authority. Okay, so if we do get the MCU versus the DCU, why don't they send the authority in the MCU against everyone in the MCU? That would be pretty cool. And they are saying that it's possible we're going to get an MCU DCU project at some point. I forget exactly who said that, but it was someone like James Gunn or Kevin Feige or both. They've said that it is possible and it has been spoken about. And it's not like crossovers are foreign to them. Tomorrow, they have a crossover comic releasing, Batman Deadpool, and they've made many crossover DC Marvel comics. You know, what's interesting about that is that it's only releasing the physical copies. You can't buy it digitally because tomorrow is a Marvel version, I think, and then they have some of the crossovers that are going to be released as DC. So the Marvel ones, Marvel collects the revenue and the profit on it. And then for the DC ones, DC collects them. But in the DC ones, you know, it's going to be a crossover with different characters as well. So, but yeah, the authority in the MCU against everyone in the MCU. I mean, that would be really cool. The authority, you know, I like the authority. I would like to see that. I think that would be really cool. But I don't know if that would be my number one ask for a crossover. Like the one thing I have a friend who is super connected with DC, and I talk to him a lot on Twitter. He's actually the one who sent me the Batman book early. So he sent me that's how I was able to review it before it came out. But he was saying that it's like, you know, he thought that Batman and Deadpool was a really fun idea for a crossover. And I told him I disagree. And don't get me wrong, I'm picking it up tomorrow. My comic shop put it aside for me. I really wanted to see Batman and Daredevil. You know, Batman and Daredevil are considered like the equivalent. Daredevil is considered Marvel's version of Batman. And if you know anything about the characters, it'll obviously click with you why. So, yeah, I would love to see Batman and Daredevil together. And if they were to if Marvel were to take on a DC villain, I don't know. I probably wouldn't pick the Authority. I'd have to think about who I would pick. I might pick Vandal Savage. I really like Vandal Savage. Batman and Iron Man comic book would be really cool, actually. You know, they're kind of similar in some ways, too. You know, billionaires lost their parents. Iron Man, you know, they both have the Playboy lifestyle, even though one of them is a Playboy for real and the other one is a Playboy for show. Let's get to this one. You should make a video on what movies and TV shows are kept canon and what movie shows are likely. You know what? I am 100% going to do that. So I'm going to take a photo of this. Everybody say cheese. All right. So I'm going to do that. I also am still working on that Doctor Doom video. And once I put it out, like, you know, if you guys please tell me what you think of it and tell me other characters. What characters would you want to see me do a deep dive from? Like, if you had the option for me to make a video for you to become an expert on a character in 10 minutes or less, which characters would you want me to do? Spider-Man and Nightwing. That would be a great team up. Wonder Woman and Captain America, Green Lanterns, and Guardian of the Galaxy. All of those would be sick. I would love to see Green Lantern and Guardians of the Galaxy. That would be awesome. Spider-Man and Nightwing. I feel like there has been a Spider-Man and Nightwing thing. Let me check. No way. Oh no, it's a fan art. Doctor Doom and Lex Luthor. You want to see me do the video on Lex Luthor and Doctor Doom, or you're saying you would want to see a team up of them? Doctor Doom is my favorite. Lex is up there for me too, but Doctor Doom is just such an incredible character on so many levels, man. I cannot wait for the MCU. You know what's funny is, Thor and Aquaman would be fire. I love Aquaman, by the way. I've been reading the new Aquaman run by Jeremy Adams. It's pretty cool. Aquaman's grown on me as a character. Comic book team up. Yeah, that would be cool. You know, that's the thing about reading comics is like you think one thing of a character and then they pop up in a certain story and you see them from a different writer and that writer gives you a new perspective on that character. And next thing you know, your perspective on that character changes or evolves. That's what's so cool about comics, man. Like, but yeah, I really like Aquaman lately. Oh man, I've been reading so much DC, it's crazy. Batman and Black Panther would be cool. I would like to see Magneto and someone like Magneto and Bane would be crazy. Deathstroke and Bullseye, or Deathstroke and Punisher. Superman and Hulk surprisingly works. I could see that actually, because both of them have to be restrained. Is that what you mean? By the way, did you guys like my thumbnail? Do you like how I thought it was cool because the image behind Batman is the Gotham City skyline in the new Batman comic. And I wanted to use something that would catch people's eyes that they haven't already seen instead of just using Gotham from the Batman movie. Goblin Queen and Zatanna. That would go crazy. Zatanna's dope. I would love to see Zatanna in the DCU. No, because Supes and Hulk are the complete opposite, and that's what works. If Hulk was being feared, Superman would see that Hulk is just misunderstood. It's a great point. It's a great point. Hulk is misunderstood. I just hate Ruffalo as an actor. I can't stand him. I don't think he's good. They should bring back Edward Norton. They wouldn't have to pay him as much now either, but he probably wouldn't do it. Didn't we see something on Nightwing being in? Let me check the docket. Hold on. Oh, a couple other things. So, Spider-Man. Almost forgot about Spider-Man. So, there was a photo of Ned with Tom Holland, and Tom Holland was wearing the Spider-Man suit. Pretty sure Zendaya was in that photo as well. And there's a rumor that Mary Jane, MJ, has a boyfriend during the events of Spider-Man Brand New Day. That came from at the Geeky Cast on Twitter. You know, do you guys know who Paul is? So Paul is the boyfriend of MJ in the comics. Fans hate Paul. A lot of fans hate Paul because they can't stand that Peter isn't with MJ anymore. I think it's ridiculous. I really don't care. I never hated Paul, even though he's a dweeb with a man bun. MJ just broke up with him like last month, by the way. But I can't imagine who's MJ's boyfriend would be if it wouldn't be Paul. Like, it's got to be Paul. And I'm telling you right now, the comic fandom is going to lose it, because the comic fandom, the thing about comic fandom and Spider-Man that's weird is that the Spider-Man fandom hates Spider-Man. They have hated on every single Amazing Spider-Man run for the past 10, maybe even 15, 20 years. Okay. It's crazy. And other than one run, all of them have been fire. All right. I read every single Amazing Spider-Man comic issue. When I tell you, other than one of them, all of the runs have been fire. And the one that wasn't fire still wasn't even that bad. But they don't understand Spider-Man. All they care about is that Peter's with MJ and Peter's not happy. And that's why I always say, like, if you don't understand that Peter's sacrifice and responsibility is about sacrificing his happiness to be a hero, you don't understand Spider-Man. But they just can't get over it. And they hate on everything. And they just want Peter to be with MJ. So I'm curious to see if they will criticize that about Spider-Man in the movies the way they do in the comics. I also think a lot of people just hate on Amazing Spider-Man comics because it's the bandwagon thing to do, and it's easier to do that than actually read up or pick up and read a comic. You know, like a lot of creators out there, not a lot, but a very specific creator or creators who, chat GPT their cliff notes and pretend they read comics. But yeah, I just think it's like, come on, man. It's so annoying. But I think a lot of people are inconsistent on what they complain about in the movies versus the comics, or they are inconsistent on the sides they would choose. Like, some people claim they would choose Captain America's side in Civil War, but real life has showed that they have sided with government overreach every single time government is overreached. So anyway, but I digress. Any more news about DCU? Oh, I wish, man. We had a lot last week, but yeah, nothing big on DCU. We did hear that one other thing I was going to say is that it's currently rumored that Insomniac wants to include Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, in either Spider-Man 3 or the rumored Venom game that supposedly is still coming out. Supposedly, Spider-Man 3 is going to be released for PS5, and Venom is going to be a launch title for PS6. And supposedly, John Bernthal is going to be at New York Comic Con, which is on October 11th and October 12th. And the Sony panel is on October 11th. So I think it's possible we see the first real Spider-Man teaser for New York Comic Con. I think that is possible. I wish I had more on DCU for you. I don't. If you watch Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Hulk was Hulk most of the time, and Banner only came out every once in a while for science stuff. Marvel needs to do that with Hulk because Hulk is the selling point. Well, let me read it. Sometimes I read it and I don't think. If you watch Avengers or as many years, Hulk was Hulk most of the time, and Banner only came out every once in a while for science stuff. Marvel needs to do that with Hulk because Hulk is the selling point. Yeah, I agree, 100%. I also liked like in the first Avengers movie, he was actually pretty good, and his anxiety about breaking out was like that was good. That felt more like real Hulk. I don't care if they bring Paul because the MCU MJ is not Mary Jane. LOL. So true. Um, I hate Zendaya MJ. I do too. Now, if this was redhead Mary Jane, then I'm gonna lose it. Yeah, I agree. If they bring in redhead Mary Jane just for her to be scooped up by Paul, oh man, that would be criminal. I would lose it. I would lose it. I'm probably reaching, but do you think the reason Zoe Catwoman not being in the Batman Part Two is because Dick Grayson is taking that spot of the secondary main character in the movie? I think it's possible. I think that there's only so much screen time, even in a 3 hour movie, for them to like develop that relationship. And you you can't have her in the movie if you're going to do Dick Grayson and he needs to spend more time with Dick Grayson. I'm not saying Dick Grayson's in the movie just because Catwoman may not be in the movie, but I do think here's the thing about Dick Grayson being in this movie for me that makes it outside of the fact that I don't really want Dick Grayson in this movie. And the reason I don't want Dick Grayson in this movie is because we're getting him in the DCU. Let Batman stand on his own. And because I think it makes it less realistic. But the reason I think it's weird if Dick Grayson is in this movie is because we know that Dick Grayson is going to be in the DCU and most likely in Batman the Brave and the Bold. So Matt Reeves obviously would know that. And if he does know that, they should want to make these movies as differentiated as they possibly can. And in order to do that, you don't make the first live action Batman with Dick Grayson movie and then do it again in the DCU, you know? And I have to imagine they're being very strategic in going around it because, listen, I don't buy into, oh, well, if there's two Batmans, the fans are going to be confused. The casuals who don't go on Twitter every day will never understand it. Like, nah, that shit's stupid. However, they have to be strategic about it. They can't release them in the two Batman movies in the same year. They have to make sure they feel differentiated. And in order to be that strategic and smart about it, you don't put Dick Grayson in both of them. So that's my thing. And I think if Matt Reeves was trying to do that, I would say Matt Reeves I would say that's almost disrespectful to James Gunn. Like, yeah, you were making the Batman movies first, but they are doing the DCU. They still want you to finish and are having you finish your thing with the Batman Epic Crime Saga. But like, you could do it without Dick Grayson. Come on, you know? Comics Cuts, any news about Superman video game? I wish, man. I would love a Superman game, but no, nothing. Batman Part 1 equals Long Halloween, hence why Catwoman is in the movie. Batman Part 2, Dark Victory, hence why Robin is in the movie. That, bro, you really are cooking tonight. That would be crazy. Dark Victory is great, too. Comics Cuts, do you think in James Gunn's Superman Man of Tomorrow, runtime will be 3 hours or 2.5 hours movie? It's really difficult to say because I think right now in 2025, we have seen shortening runtimes become the trend, but I don't think it's going to stay the trend because I think what's going to happen is that next year, I think Spider Man Brand New Day is going to be a 2.5 hour movie. And I think Avengers Doomsday is going to be a 2.5 hour movie. I would guess Supergirl being 2 hours and 10 minutes, similar to what Superman was. But I would, if I had to guess right now, I would say Superman Man of Tomorrow would be a 2.5 hour movie. I think it's going to need more time because it's not just a Superman movie, it's a Superman and Lex Luthor movie. And it's like, it's the first real movie that is using build up. Like, it's the first DCU movie that will have been built up to. What if Matt wants to recreate Grayson's death? Dick doesn't suit up as Robin, but his parents' death is part of a larger conspiracy that Batman is trying to solve. That would be really cool. And you could tie that into the Court of Owls, you know? Maybe there was a reason that, you know, maybe something faulty happened in the circus where the Court of Owls needed to kill Dick Grayson's parents. You know, I set Chat GPT to constantly search for when Fantastic Four was releasing on digital, and it updated me, like gave me my phone a notification every hour, and I kept saying no update, no update, no update. And then all of a sudden, last night there was an update, and it's releasing next week on the 23rd. And now I'm like, oh, well, that's annoying. Now I got to wait a week. Yeah, but it is pretty cool. Fast that it's coming out next week. I love that movie. I think that movie is peak MCU, by the way. I really do. I thought they crushed the characterizations. I thought they crushed Galactus. You know, everything about it was so, so good. And I was worried about Pedro. I was worried about the Silver Surfer, but it was great. Like, I really love that movie. Can't wait to watch it again. And you know me, I'm going to keep it real with you. Like, even though Fantastic Four, one of my top favorite characters or teams, whatever, like, I wasn't sold on Pedro for the longest time. I told you from day one, you know, I didn't wait for the movie to come out and then be like, you know, I wasn't sure about this actor. Like, it's just not honest, you know? But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up in like 10 or 20 seconds, unless you guys want to throw anything else into the chat to talk about. I'm still not a Pedro Reed fan until the mustache is gone. I gotta say, like, that's fair. It's so ridiculous that they didn't make him shave the mustache. That's the one thing I also can't get over. It's like, this movie matters so much. This character is so important, And to me, that was all Pedro being egotistical. Like, who do you think you are to keep the mustache? Like, do your job, do the fans the service of showing that you care to do this character right. I 100% agree with you. That I still think he did a good job, and I really love the movie, and I think he crushed it in the role. But I respect your complaint because I agree. I think it's ridiculous that he had the mustache. I hope so. The one thing I think it's, if I had to say right now, I would say no. I don't think it's going to do a billion. I think what's going to happen is actually it's 2027. So I would say it's tough because box office is trending downwards right now, but that's also going to be a really, really big year for comic book movies, and rising tides raise all ships. So I think the Batman Part 2 is going to benefit from comic book movie hype in 2027. But I still think a billion is crazy. Consider it. But like the first one did 700 mil. And the thing about sequels is that the sequels have the benefit of the Batman having been out available to watch at home for over 5 years, where the fan base who's going to see the Batman Part 2 had time to grow so much more that it didn't before the first one. So that's why sequels have a added benefit there. But a billion, it's still a big jump. So I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say no. I don't think it's going to do a billion. Deal? And what do you think the buzz will be if Robin Dick is in Batman Part 2 from a casual viewpoint, not an internet viewpoint? I don't know. I don't know that casuals will be. I think casuals will be more indifferent about it. It's funny because I saw a meme the other day or a TikTok, and someone was like, oh, I always have to tell people when they ask my favorite superhero, and I say it's Nightwing, and they're like, "Who's Nightwing?" And they never care, So I don't know that casuals will be affected one way or the other. I think when they see the movie, they'll like the character because I'm sure if it's in the movie, Reeves is going to do it right. But before seeing the movie, like I don't think Robin is going to be a selling point to casuals. I could see Rob. I could see Robin as selling point because people will be like, "Wait, Robin is in the movie." That's true. Maybe it does make them more interested because they don't know much about Robin and they are interested in learning more about Robin. Spark curiosity. Exactly. It could. It totally could. Totally could. I don't think it would be like have the same effect as like Doctor Doom, though. You know what I mean? Like I think casuals know that Doctor Doom is a big deal, so they'd be more interested in something like that. But I could see, yeah, people could be more interested in wanting to learn about Robin and being curious about him for sure. I still hope they change the Brave and the Bold title. I hate that title so much. How sad is it that the only live action Robin we have is Chris O'Donnell? Yeah. And so, oh man, some of the things they said in that movie were so cheesy. It's funny. I saw someone on Instagram make a video saying how Batman and Robin is much better than we remember, and we owe Joel Schumacher an apology. I was like, bro, get lost, okay? Like that movie is trash. There is nothing good about it. There's no redeeming qualities. It is trash. It's not. I don't even consider it a real Batman movie. If you've been watching me, you know I always say when I'm sitting down to watch a Batman movie, I don't consider anything from before Batman Begins. And if I were to, it would be between. I would probably pick between Batman or Batman Returns. Batman Forever is great though. It's people keep saying I probably do need to rewatch Batman Forever. I remember when I was 5 years old and that movie came out, and I went to see that with my dad and my friend and my friend's dad. Oh my god, I was so hyped. But I haven't watched it like as an adult. I need to rewatch it as an adult because people say that, and people say that Val Kilmer is an underrated Batman. Batman and Robin or Morbius. So I actually haven't seen Morbius, so I would probably choose Morbius though, because at least Morbius didn't. The reason I would choose Morbius is because Morbius isn't supposed to be a goofy movie, where Batman and Robin is. Like I can't get past the goofiness and cheesiness or camp. I hate the word camp to describe a movie because when I think of camp, I think of like summer camp, but whatever. So I would choose Morbius. Even though I have seen Batman and Robin and I haven't seen Morbius, I would choose Morbius because at least Morbius, even if it's ass, they tried. For real, they tried. Hungry Almighty. If the Court of Owls is the main villain, the perfect title is Trial of the Batman. That is cold. I 100% agree. That would be sick. Man, I really is hope it is the Court of Owls. They're the best. I also think and by the way, if it is the Court of Owls, I do think that it's more likely to hit 1 billion because I know like casuals, not some casuals know of the Court of Owls. Like the Court of Owls name does carry a lot of hype. I had a friend who was like, I had a friend whose brother was big into comics, and he was like, "Oh, I just ordered this sick like Batman Court of Owls omnibus." I knew nothing about the comics at the time. I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Oh, the Court of Owls are like a secret society villain. It's supposed to be like the best Batman comic ever. You should check it out." He like sent me the link. He's like, "Check it out." So I ordered the omnibus, and I read it, and I was like blown away. And then at the time, my the company I was working for was walking distance from a comic shop. So during lunch one day, I went in there and checked it out. I was like, "Yeah, I just read this Batman Court of Owls. Like, do you have anything else like that?" And they gave me the graphic novels that are the sequels from that storyline, and that's how I got into comics. And I was obsessed. Thank you, Kevin, bro. You're the man. Just trying to cook here. Hungry's been cooking tonight. Hungry has been cooking. Oh. Would you rather they called it Avengers Time Runs Out, or would you guys rather they called it Avengers Illuminati? All right. Oh, all right. Never mind. I don't want the Avengers in the title at all. Oh, that's what I meant. I just want Doctor Strange, Illuminati. I agree. I agree. I got confused because I had this as the thumbnail, but if it's a Doctor Strange movie, it's not going to be called Avengers. But I agree. If it says Avengers, like it would be weird to say Avengers Illuminati. But yeah, Doctor Strange Illuminati would be sick. There's a comic coming out. I think this week. I got to get up to date, but hold on, I'm gonna airdrop this photo so you can see what I'm talking about. So you guys probably heard about this, but around the time of Thunderbolts being released and the title changing to New Avengers, they launched this new comic run called the New Avengers. And now they got, oh, that's not even the right cover. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I have it. Here it is. Okay. So this is they're calling it the New Avengers versus the Killuminati. I think it looks sick. What if Dick loses his parents and then the Court of Owls recruits him because Batman decided to not take him in? Batman later finds a bunch of kids that works with the Court of Owls, and one of them is Dick. I just hope I don't know. I wouldn't want them to change up Dick Grayson like that. I don't know. I don't like that. Sorry, bro. The guilt eats away at Batman for not helping the kid when he should have. If they used another kid and did that, like I would be cool with that, but not Dick Grayson. I don't think that would land well with fans. I think comic fans would lose it over that. But then we tease Robin at the end. The other thing is with that, like I don't know that we're definitely getting a third movie in that saga. I know they're saying that a third movie is coming. I just I don't believe it's going to happen because first of all, Spider-Man 4 never released. Andrew Garfield never got the Amazing Spider-Man 3. Movies have been announced that never ended up coming to fruition. But the other thing here is the fact that by the time they are talking about like making a third movie, the DCU Batman will be, the first movie will have came out by then. The DCU will be further along. I think it's going to be much easier and more practical to shelve it at that point. I want a third movie too. The more Batman, the better. I really do. I just don't think it's reasonable to expect it. All right. One more chat, and then I got to wrap it up. All right. The best way to get a third movie is to end the Batman Part 2 in a way where it's a perfect ending, but opens the door for a third. I think that would be the smart thing. I was thinking about how they're going to end it too. And hopefully that's what Matt Reeves did. Or maybe he wants his third movie so much that he was refusing to do that. And he ended it in a way where he's like, I need my third. But I think that would be the smart, reasonable, and practical thing to do 100%. You know, hopefully we find out who the DC Batman is on Batman Day, which is on the 16th, 17th. I think Saturday is Batman Day. So hopefully we find out, man. I wouldn't hold my breath though. I still don't. I know a lot of people think it's coming on Saturday. I don't. I really don't. I think like if they were going to announce the Batman casting, the time to do it was when you release Superman on digital or something like that. I don't see the incentive for them of announcing it on Saturday. That's all. But anyway, thanks for joining. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your support. As always, I appreciate it. And I will see you guys on Thursday, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a good night. Oh, one more. If they do continue the Reeves verse with more characters, even if his Batman films end with two, who would you want to see solo shows or movies for? I would love to see a Deathstroke series. Like that would be really cool. I also thought Deathstroke would make a cool villain for the Batman because the one thing I thought they were lacking with in the first one was action and combat. And if you make Deathstroke the villain, you're forcing yourself to have to level up combat and action, especially on Batman's part. Uh, but some of the comments sounded like that's kind of what they were aiming towards, which was expected. I'm sure they're aware that that was like the one thing they were lacking on. But yeah, I would say Deathstroke. And supposedly there are other series in the works that they're making. So I have to imagine Penguin is going to get a season two. I think they've said that they're not going to do it, but like that show performed so well. I just don't see a world where they don't. All right. That's it. I got to go. Have a good night, guys. Thanks again. I'll see you Thursday.